Okay, I'm going to try to answer your questions here, Amy, and provide you a little bit more information as well. So, I mentioned something about the need for organization, which is really important with this because it's easy to start getting confused about what file is what and all that kind of stuff. So, have your main folder. You created one already. In that main folder, I recommend having a client's recording folder, and under that, you would have client names. If you come up with a naming conventions like Hubbard-M, so that when you sort the files, they can be easily, seen, so like the client, where they fall in the alphabet. It can be easier to find their folder. Also, if you're consistent in your naming convention, you can always predict how you can search for something. So if you always know you put their last name on the name of the folder in the file, like the recording, then that's going to help you quite a bit. So within that, you'll eventually put your Audacity project. And then you'll also have you'll have the original recording that you did, then you'll have your Audacity project, then you will have the final output, which is where you've put everything together, and that's the thing that you've shared with your client. We'll look at that in a second. Under master files, you could see original files or whatever. I recommend having an induction folder, so that's for all of your intro stuff. So you would have your project so that you can go back and edit your induction. And then you would have your output, the thing that you want to add to all your different client recordings. So having that set up this way will be helpful. And then raw files are good. So original recordings of, say, you doing the induction voiceover or original music or anything that you might want to keep pulling into different projects is helpful to have those raw or original files ready to go. Okay, so let's imagine you have recorded your client, as you maybe already did or have discovered. It's just best to name your project at the top. So I've recorded my client. I have saved. I haven't done it yet, so I'll do it right now. I'm going to save the project. I should have, if I was recording my client, I'd actually do this before I even record. But I will save their recording in the proper folder. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And so like I said, that's their original. So what I would do then is as you have done already, I would actually export at this point as an MP3. So I have their recording without anything with it. So I have an original recording without the induction or anything. This is, again, just anticipating any technical issues you might have. Okay, so now I've done that. And the next thing I want to do is add in the induction. So I'm going to go to the folder where I keep that. And here's the MP3. Notice I have version 1, so that's always good to do. You can do things like versions, or you can put the month and the year or whatever. If you're going to have a series of these and you want to be able to know when they're from, or it just helps you to identify what you need. So I'm just going to drag this in just like you did with music. And now I have these two tracks that if I were to play them would play all at once, which would be a problem. So just to make it easier, I'm going to go up here to these magnifying glasses and I'm going to zoom out. So this is the induction track. This is the client recording track. And just so you know, you can rename tracks, which may or may not be necessary, but you can always say client and you could say induction, which is actually already says that. So that's just, for your knowledge. So in order to drag a track, they've changed it, which is nice. They've made it easier. All you have to do is hover at the top of a track and drag it over. So it's sort of like a patchwork quilt where, if you had a bunch of different tracks, a bunch of different sound clips, you really just sort of patch them in the order that you want and need. So when you do this, as you probably can imagine, it potentially could be very jarring to go from this track to this track. So there are different things you can do to help fix that. You can create fades, for example. That's probably the best course of action. And you can highlight the area that you want to start the fade and how long you want the fade to go, and then you go to effect, and you can go to fade out. And it'll, add it. You can do one at the beginning. You can do a fade in. And I would maybe want to do one here. So you just kind of need to decide, how long you want fades to be, whether you want silence in between the clips, so it goes completely silent, and then the, sound comes back up, whether you want it to be, sort of fade into each other, like almost like a crossfade, in which case this fades down and this fades up either kind of immediately, or you actually overlap them slightly, and so you have a fade down and a fade up overlapping. So it's a stylistic choice. Other ways to deal with things like fades and volume, which you probably have discovered, is using the envelope tool. So I can just lower a whole track, or I can click and create these little, nodes, and then adjust. So you could also create fades that way. It's all up to you. In Audacity, you can undo the same way you do in a Word doc. So Command Z. So I'm just undoing. Okay, so if I now want to add music underneath my the client speaking, then you do what you did before, which is to drag the music in. And again, grab it at the top and move it over. Now, to make a cut, which I don't know if you figured that out yet or not, I'm going to take it off the envelope tool. I'm just going to put it. You can also use the multi-tool, which allows you to move between tools without clicking over. I'm not going to worry about that right now, but it is a tool that you can look up and use. Which, if you want to get into it, I can show you. But right now, I'm just going to use the selection tool, and it's just like a cursor. So I'm just going to put it there. If I want to make a cut, I'm putting where I want to make a cut, and I'm hitting Command I. And you can see it splits the track. There's a few different ways to do this, but this is an easy way. Then I'm clicking on the track, that part of the track that I want to get rid of, and I'm double clicking now, and then I'm deleting. So that's a way of just getting rid of some stuff. And then I might need to add a small fade at the beginning of that to soften it a little bit. Some of this is maybe more information than you need, but I think knowing how to cut, knowing how to add fades, knowing how to adjust volume is important. Editing music is actually very hard. So if you're trying to run music underneath that you need to edit, you play around with it and see if you can edit it cleanly. But if you can't, you can send it to me and let me know how long you want it to run. I can try to do it. I have some tools that might make it a little smoother. If for some reason you just want to create a new track because you want to add another bit of recording or something to it, that's easy to do. Go to tracks, add new. And if it's a voice recording, it's probably just going to be mono. If you were doing music recording, it would be stereo. As you saw, when you drag tracks in, it creates the right amount of tracks that you need. But if you're recording into it, you would need to tell it what kind of track. So most of the time, since all the recording you'll be doing is voice recording, it'll be a mono track. So that's how you create tracks if you need to add anything additional. So let's imagine that I have now my version of the recording I want to share with the client. First, I'm just gonna save the project. So I hit Command S, just like with a Word doc. So now I have this if I need to go back to and make a change for that client. And then I'm going to now, I guess, let's just imagine, I think you wanted music underneath that, so just to make it look more similar to probably what you're going for. Okay, so notice how far I turned that down. When you want sound running underneath something and you use the envelope tool, you usually have to take it down really far. Like, that's actually probably not nearly far enough. So if it seems like you're going ridiculously, if you're, minimizing the soundtrack to a ridiculous amount, you're probably not. It's just the tool is kind of weird. Okay, so I'm going to cut that clip there. Okay, let's imagine I got rid of that. Let's imagine I faded out all this slightly. Fade out. And there's something at the end there. Let's imagine I'm fading out. Okay, so it might look something like this. So I'm going to do as one does and save the project. And then I'm going to export as an MP3. And what I'm going to do this time is I don't actually want to, I'm going to save this under the client. Here we go. I don't want to accidentally override my original recording, which was that file name was this. So I want to differentiate it so that there's no issues. I don't want to lose my original file. So I'm going to give it a different name. So you may want something like edited, or you may want final, whatever it is that indicates to you that it's ready to share with your client. So now I'm going to save that. So notice you get this thing that says it'll mix down everything. That's fine. That's what you want. If for some reason there was a track in there that you didn't want to be a part of your final recording, the final MP3 that's exported, you can actually mute it and then it wouldn't be a part of the track. So let's imagine, oh, actually we don't need this music. I would have just hit mute and it would only export these 2 tracks right here. That's fine. That's just for stuff you don't need to worry about. Okay, so now you will have the track to share with your client, the original recording, and the project in case you need to go back and make any changes. And then, obviously then you have to decide how long to hold on to these different files. But that's up to you. And I think I would just let them build up for a little while until you kind of have more of a system in place.